Okay, so hi everyone. This is episode, I think it's a 6. Now, last one was episode 5. This is episode 6. We're picking up. This is going to be Wednesday, October 21st, 2020. And we are picking up with Bast and Ignatious. They had just left the Warrior's Altar, which was a really interesting interaction between the group there and the dwarven master smith Tamardin. Danny has dropped off some avian armor that he actually got from the avian city of dreams up on the top of the mountain of tears, that he is trying to have more custom fit to his liking, and has paid Tamardin handsomely because of some previous stuff that the two have went through, some pretty dramatic things. Also, meeting an avian that is something rare for Tamardin. He entrusted something pretty unique to Ron's character, or at least some knowledge, that there is a person that Ron had once dealt with years and years ago, actually somewhere here in the city. If you've seen that episode, you know exactly what I'm talking about. From there, you guys left, and you were heading up towards one of the higher levels of the city, and you were going to await outside the main gates that lead into what would be the royal level of the city, the place where King Omadon himself, Valimar, Landorus, call their home. And Ron, you know that you have a place up there as well. Hopefully someone will show you where that is when you get inside, if you do ask. Also, Danny, you don't know much about the buildings and things up there. Of all the prowling around and things that you've done in the city over the years, that's a place that you've never went to, nor was there ever a reason to go. But I will say this. You observed once before, being on the rooftops on an uneventful night, that Lydia's twin sister, Oriana, you saw her leaving those gates one time and coming into the lower levels of the city, and you saw those gate doors close behind her as if she wasn't sneaking. She was being let in and out. That is something you've kept to yourself. Okay? That's all that your character and Danny would even know about, something of that nature. But that's something you saw a time ago, before a lot of these bigger things started happening, before you even really truly knew who and what she was. Okay? Okay, with that, I'll leave it to you guys to decide. We said you had roughly an hour and a half to kill, and you were doing the rooftops. Danny rolled a natural 20, as Danny does, and we're hopping over the rooftops, and you were headed that direction with haste. Ignatius, with just very light snow at this point, maybe a 1/4 inch glaze on top of everything. You found heft in your wings because of the climate here. You're able to get a good full-bodied swing on things. The air is much thicker, and the two of you are making for the gate of the highest level of the city. Danny, just for shits and giggles, roll me a d20. Did you roll a natural 20?
Yeah.
A natural 20. See, sometimes what you do is a curse, my friend. Okay. Okay. We're going to get there. We're going to get there, guys. You don't have to show me. I told you, Ron, every time he moves the camera, he's showing off some high rolls. Okay, so as you guys because this will actually more kind of dictate what happens once we get in there. So that helps quite a bit. Okay. When you get to this highest level of the city, and Ron, I've described to you, I think a couple times, maybe in character, maybe out of character, how the city is actually structured, man. It has multiple layers to it, and it was built on the foundation of some kind of mountain, but the mountain is pretty much not visible anymore, whereas the kingdom and things in these levels has pretty much completely taken it over. But there are still large walls of stone that are still uncarved and left in different parts of the city, and different places actually carved into the actual mountain as you go up different levels. This highest level, there's an interesting series of different stairways, wide, some narrow paths that lead all through different patterns to go up and down through the different layers of the city. And now that you're flying and looking down at it for maybe one of the real first times where you've got to notice it peacefully, it is a maze of incredibly done architecture. And it's amazing that people took a mountain and turned it into something like this. There's been an immense amount of work done here, whereas the avians live in things that they have somewhat constructed, but mostly are the ruins left from an angelic race that was around far before you. These people made this, you know what I mean? Or at least helped it along. There are some things that are made here that it's almost like watching Ancient Aliens. How did they move stones that big, you know? And of course, we have answers for that in our world, but we don't have answers for the A&E show. But you see a lot of that, and it does take you. It is fairly breathtaking the further up you go. Of course, the highest level of the city is not as high as sky as Overwatch, which is over to the side, but still reasonably high. You see Danny heading towards what seems to be one of the larger, more centralized stairways that seems to be very wide and very grand, with several different statues lining its sides. As I would say, the stairway itself is a good 40 foot wide and just not as steep as some of the other parts getting to it, but seems to hold a lower angle. And different trees growing in pots along that area, many different banners hanging over this one gate that seems to be a centralized gate. The gate itself isn't like your typical black iron gate, okay? It looks more like the things you would see in Skyrim, two interlocking stone doors that seem as if they have mechanisms built into the actual structured wall that will pull them apart if summoned on. And then behind that would be your typical iron gate. Danny, when you're approaching this wall, you see that fires burn all through the night in different towers along this wall that kind of sections off this part of the city from the rest. You even see some thinner stairwells that lead up and snake up along the sides and lead up to some of these towers. And you would still have to deal with a person in those to get over the wall. So in some places, instead of the main central gate, there are a series of steps that grow up that look like they're going to go over the wall, but they lead right into these watchtowers. You see something really interesting, Ron. There are hawks aplenty up here, and they seem to have some kind of leather helmeted stuff on them. They seem to be outfitted somehow, almost like training birds are, if you've ever seen shows where they put the leather things on them, and some of them make their eyes only be able to look a certain way, or they may have leather straps around their feet so they can be grabbed easily. I wish I was an expert on that, but I'm not. But you see at least a dozen large size black to dark brown with and very few are light colored hawks that go from these peaks. And they seem to, every once in a while, one of them will make a screech out and echo throughout the silence on that level. It's very quiet up here and you can just see the dim lights on the levels down below. You might hear rustles of noise, little whispers of music, but it is enchanting at this hour. We've said it's close to about 10:30, 11 o'clock, didn't we, Danny? Because you needed to meet him there at midnight, right?
Right.
Okay. Cinderella, stroke of midnight. Here we go. So you look at them, Ron. I would like for you to do a perception check for me.
17.
Okay, so you're able to see that these hawks fly back and forth, and they are going in and out of similar looking towers of the main castle itself. And it is an immense structure that is built, and the architecture of it almost seems to be gravity defying. You'll see it almost looks like a mountain and a castle had a kid. It goes up in unorthodox but finally straightened by man's hand columns, and the other columns will branch off of it and reach up and go towards the sky. And it is odd. It is also magnificent that they were able to pull this off. It's not a simple sound structure like you're used to seeing. This thing has been masterfully crafted. And the stone in this thing particularly seems to be a dark gray to black in places. And there are all kinds of stairwells twisting around it, many banners, several different rooms flicker with the light, with people being awake, many different, I don't know, balconies hang out and support this, and you would see people that are looking and watching at you. Some are pointing, but there is no ruckus from them. Finely clothed individuals. And every once in a while you'll get someone dressed in the city's go-to colors, black and gold, as if they're a guest there or parts of a family that would remain in that period. Now I would like for you to roll me a investigation.
$24.
Oh, well, hell. Oh, Alex is waiting to come in. I'll get her real quick. I admitted her, and let's see what happens. I did, didn't I? I hope I didn't say, no, you can't come in. I'm pretty sure I hit admit. There she is. Hey, Alex.
Hello.
We are recording, and we have just got these guys up to the gate, and they're trying to get into the higher level of the city. Like the t-shirt, by the way. Fantastic.
Thank you.
No problem. And when we get through quite a bit of this, we will get back to what you and Dayhon are up to and getting to the ship, okay?
Okay.
So hang in. If you have any questions, throw a hand up, let me know what you need, and we're going to go ahead and trudge on through this. They rolled a 20 on their damn check to see if they ran into anything from where they're at to here. Danny is a golden god. He just rolls 20s like giving out Pez dispenser candy. It's crazy. So it's going to be, Ron's like, just let me roll them next time, would you? So anyway, moving on with what you guys are doing. Let's see. With that check and that high of a roll, you notice that there are scrolls being held in the feet of these hawks, and they seem to be doing some kind of message transporting back and forth from several different towers on the central castle, which I think we decided was called the Hawk's Nest, correct, Danny? Hawk's Nest Castle. Yeah. And back and forth with these pillars as if they're sending updates on what's going on in the city. Reports and things like that. There seems to be this very intricate thing being done, and it is impressive to you that they have been able to train these simple creatures in such a way. You've only read about things like that. There are native creatures where you're from, but they are much more intelligent, mystical creatures, Ron, up around where you're at, like griffins and things like that. to see this descendant of those being so trained and used in such abundance up here is very interesting to you. Okay. Danny, as you get up to the very top of the steps, close to the actual gate itself, it is silent. There are two doorways on both sides of the gate that seem to be just smaller versions of that same main central one. And this is the first time you've stood at it and looked at it. And it is held together. On one half of this large stone door is a silhouette carved into the actual face of it. And on one half, you see what would almost look like, what is the name, and for people watching, I don't know this off the top of my head, I apologize. What is the name of that monument where all the soldiers are leaning together and are holding up the American flag?
Iwo Jima.
Yes, thank you. My stepdad Phil would kick me in the ass if I didn't just.
Yeah, the Korean War Monument. Actually, I've been there a couple of times. Pictures don't do it justice.
I went there once in 6th grade, but I was a 6th grade year-old boy, so I didn't even get it then. But I've seen it.
I've gone a couple of times the last few years with my kids for school trips.
Well, that's awesome, dude. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm glad your schools have money to do that kind of shit now. Back then, we didn't get book bags, so.
Well, the schools, they pass through a discount, but it's hundreds of dollars
I'm sure.
per kid.
So there is a carving on the one first great side of this door. It looks kind of like that.
Good.
Different human soldiers and fighters and warriors climbing on top of each other and holding something at bay. And you have to imagine, like, if this is the seam in the two great doors, they're actually overlapping stone images coming from one side to the other, almost making like a tongue and groove of the doors, but it's made out of actual shapes of people that create this interaction, something that you've not seen. And then on the other side, you have giants. You have large giants with hounds that look like large dire wolves that are fighting back against the humans and the elves. And you see an actual winged avian depicted on the one mortal side of the door. And this door just depicts the combat, the battle that had to take place for the sea to be built. And those images overlap each other, creating the tongue and groove of the doorway. I wanted to make a point of that because I always thought that was a really cool thing they had done here. Danny, once you get up and you're kind of caught looking at that and seeing the detail and craftsmanship in this, what are you doing?
I'm just probably at this point he's looking around and seeing if he'd catch any runic writing in there as well.
Go on investigation.
What? Chocolate. You can't buy it. Go sit down.
14.
You don't catch anything angelic or anything from what your new patronage is about, nor do you see anything of thieves' cant or anything like that on here. You get parts of common language, but it has almost a tinge to it. Like, for instance, when people are talking Norse, every once in a while there's a couple vowels and syllables of a English word that we get out of it. You see that in flashes on different things, as around the top of the doors, it looks like a scroll made of stone that has words and depicted and things like that. And on so many different characters on the door, I forgot to mention this, there are little placards that have names. And you would see several different giant names and titles underneath there. And you see something, Danny, with a 14. You just see several different names of giants and stuff that you've not really seen depicted down below before. This is something meant for higher up eyes. Not everyone even gets to climb these steps. Okay. And you also see some human named heroes and things. And on the far side of the door, You recognize the
What's
person.
6? I forgot how to do
A
this.
very young Nicodemus
Oh yeah, I do it.
depicted on the door. Before he had his really long hair, things of that nature, wielding a two-handed greatsword, and he seems like he has been added in later along with some other people. And you also see Gwyneth, the owner of the Heart of the Beast, and she seems to have a soldier on her back, okay, that is holding a crown in their hand, laying limp across the back of her centurion form as she's reared up with her spear in both hands. These seem to be newer additions to the wall, to the
He'll
doors.
probably put his hand on it and say, that's Oma down there.
And I think we lost Ron. Real D&D people. Alex, would you like to role play Ron? You've got to meet him enough. You just got to pull your hair back and act like you have no hair, and then you have to be clever, and you have to know all the spells. That's all. It's no problem. You can be Ron easy. Okay. So hopefully he'll get back up on here in just a few moments, Danny. I'll go ahead and continue speaking. You are muted at the moment, by the way, my friend. Okay, just so you know.
Yeah, I'm helping some homework at the same time.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. So, what were you deciding that you wanted to do once you get there and you investigate the door and you're seeing these images and things like that? You see different people patrolling the top of the wall, Danny, and then a hawk comes flying down, and it shocks you, and it has a scroll in its talons, and it comes down and hovers, and it lands on a part of the outside edge of the door that's recessed. It's come out a little bit. You know, most stone doors that interlock like this will have that outjetting stone ledge around them. It lands at the top of that. It's just there and cocks its head, and kind of looks at you and squawks at you and stuff. And it has this leather, this scroll in its talons. It looks right at you. It looks up and it's cocking its head up and looking at Ignatius. And it drops the scroll. It lands on the cold stone, and it just sits there and looks at you.
I pick up the scroll and I also stick out the arm that has the bracer I can't take off on it if it wants to perch on it while I read it.
Roll an animal handling check. There's a new one. There's one we don't pull out all the time. It's an animal handling check.
Let me see. I don't know if I have any skills in animal. I've got horsemanship, I think.
It's not a horse.
Right.
That's too funny.
I got a natural 15, and the only thing I got, I could throw charisma in it.
Well, I mean, okay, on your character sheet, in that little column beside your stat blocks, is there a one that says animal handling there, so it tells you which one to use with it?
Yes, it is. It's based in wisdom. So I got a 17 total.
So you look at your DM. Look at your DM knowing some shit. Okay, so a 17. So you get kind of a serious look on your face, Danny. You hold your arm up because you've seen people do this. You've seen King Omadon has one of these actually, that he has held his arm up. And we'll say in the arena, which we just did not so many hours ago, he had a hawk that would bring him messages. And you're thinking back to that, it's like, I can do this. I can do this. And as you hold it up, that's when the hawk drops the scroll and just starts looking at you. it like it's thinking about it for a minute, and it kind of sees you. You see it kind of lunge forward and kick around, and does this kind of like pop. Drops the scroll, hits the ground, and you're like, almost had it, man. Almost had it. Okay, what are you doing from that point, buddy?
Pick up the scroll, open it up, and see what it says.
Okay. So as you pick it up and unroll it, this is the good stuff. You are getting a scroll directly from the king or someone close to him. This is the kind of stuff that you've maybe seen. You've seen it brought into Vander's shop just a few occasions. Okay. The parchment stick, not dirty at all, has a natural tanned color to it. The sides are, the ink work is fresh and new, very well written. It basically says to wait where you are. Okay, just wait here. There's nothing special on this. And your guide will join you to the left of the giant's monument. Okay. In reading that, you're seeing there is the left side of this large door that if you're facing it, the left side of it is the one depicted of the giants fighting their side of the battle. And you see that there's this other little guard door to the side of that goes into this wall. You've got to imagine that that is the place. Whereas these main steps lead up to the main door, they actually split off into two other little sets of steps that ramp up just slightly, and then have other patios that lead these two doors of what looks like maybe guards would come in and out of, so they didn't have to open the main. Okay? You would have to assume they mean you'll be on that one over there. And there seems to be a, how do I want to describe this? It's not like a key. It's like a token that has a leather strap around it. All right, bye. And more like a talisman, okay? And it has a depiction of a hawk on it, okay? It seems to be a key of some kind. As intricate as these doors are, you've almost got to imagine that it would work in a similar way, although you've never used one on a door like this before. Okay? And I just admitted Ron back into the meeting. He should be here in just a second. And there we go. Hey, buddy. Sorry we lost you.
Oh, it was my fault. My charger wasn't plugged into the wall and my battery died.
You missed a funny thing, and I'll tell you, I'll give you a brief one, and we'll move on. So a hawk came up and landed on the top ledge of this great interlocking, artistically made door, and it was a fairly decorated one, a hawk that seems to have some kind of high standing. It's had more of this protection on it, and it was a blacker one, bigger than some of the others, and it landed up on there and it had a scroll in its talons. And Danny decided that he was going to see if he could get it to land on his arm. So he held his arm up. It's like, come to me. He rolled a natural 15 with bonuses, got a 17, but wasn't quite enough. And although the hawk thought about it, it dropped the scroll and is now sitting there just kind of waiting and watching you guys, jerking his head around and stuff. Moving forward, Ron, are you still flying, or are you landing beside Danny in front of this large door? Or do you want me to describe something else, maybe somewhere else you want to land? You are muted, my friend.
Like,
Ian, still going on. Okay. You're muted.
Like, do you?
Danny cast
All right,
silence on you. I'm
muted.
sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Try it again.
All right, I said at this point, yes, I would be coming down and landing next to Bastille.
Okay. As he lands there beside Bastille, Bash, you pick up the scroll. He opens it up, Ron, and you see it says some words. He's reading it. His lips are moving softly. You hear him just whispering some words, and you see what looks like a talisman that has the symbol of a hawk with a leather strap in this actual scroll work as he unrolls it. It was actually, we'll say it was what was binding it together. Okay. Danny, would you like to talk to him about what the scroll says?
Looks like we'll be meeting him either right outside of there or right inside of there. And he flips that talisman in his fingers, rolls it across his knuckles.
Okay. Just for the hell of it, roll a dex check. I hope you drop it.
16.
So he does okay. He's like someone that's trying to be a drummer with a pencil in between the fingers. He does an okay job. We'll give him that. And it doesn't seem like there. He seems like it says it'll be on the door to the side, at the same side that the Giants depiction is on the door. There's an actual side door there, Ron, that the guards use to come in and out of, which looks like a single person entranceway. It seems to be, although the main grand gate itself, if it were pulled apart, would be quite a feat. And they may very well pull it open during the day and then close it at a certain hour at night and just rely on the iron gate on the other side for their protection. But these other little side gates look to be the entrance ways for soldiers, for different people, and there's something about these doors that makes it seem like they'd be very imposing, although they're smaller. From the letter Danny has, it would say that around midnight someone will be there to let them have entrance into this place. Okay? As you're looking over that direction, Danny, you hear a voice come down from the top of the wall. And it says, Donesta. And it gives a whistle. You want to write down the word Donesta. Spell it how you want. The voice is familiar, and you recognize this as Landerless's voice, the court mage. It says Donesta. And it gives a whistle. And I suck at whistling, so I'm not going to do it. But it's impressive. The hawk flies off of the door, flies up the several different 10, 20 or 30 feet or so to get to the top of this barrier, and lands on his shoulder as he looks down on top of the two of you. And remember who plays this character, correct? I just want you guys to visually have who it is, you know. So when I do this voice, you don't think I'm just being ridiculous. And he says, it would seem you've came earlier than expected.
Bass says, early is on time and on time is late.
He looks confused for a minute. And he thinks around and searches for a comeback for that. And he says, I'll leave that one alone.
And just for a second, Bass would have been measuring the distance to see if he could be standing beside him, and then lets it go.
Okay. That's curious. Okay.
Probably enough of a thought of it that if he was watching, he'd have seen the energy gather before he.
That's what I'm saying. Okay. So yeah. So on that note, he looks at you curiously, as if he's looking at you getting ready to move a pawn that he knows will put you in checkmate. He looks at this little thought that goes past your head. And he says to you, how do I want to word this? He says, it would appear that being a hawkmaster is only the first of your attempts and endeavors at greatness tonight. He looks at you, I would stop while you were ahead. He says to you. And he just looks at you cleverly. And, you know, I wouldn't normally play this an NPC this snarky and this condescending, but this is a very brilliant individual. I can pretty much give him the full horns of the bull when it comes to these kind of things. He saw your intent, the orneriness flashed through you for just a minute. He saw your posture and says that sarcastic thing to make you think ill of it. Okay. He says to you, he calls you Master Ignatius, Ron, when he talks to you from the top of the wall. And he says, your quarters are ready for you. There will be guards on the outside of the actual castle that will guide you there if you would wish to see that tonight. He says, if not, Simply come into the main gate of the castle and it will be shown to you at a later time. He says, I must go. Midnight is approaching. Be careful doing this thing. And he looks at you a little weary for half a minute. And you see a little something in him, Danny. Ignatius, you do too. And as he does that, he turns with a concerned look. You remember from a previous conversation that him and Valimar have had to stay by the king's side all night long, every night for weeks. Because around midnight, usually these ancestors and these evil spirits and shit and ghosts and things start coming up and attacking the castle. And now you're starting to realize why there's so many lights on at this hour. Why the guards are out. Why the hawks are flying back and forth. And you know something that many other people don't. As you walk over to the door, or I'm sorry, Danny, I don't mean to say you're walking towards the door. You literally can do what you want to.
Right. As he's turning around and he says that, Bast would actually look up and say, if all goes well, maybe you'll rest. Get a good night's sleep tomorrow.
A voice echoes out as he's going down the other side of the wall. I'll rest when you do. Not before. Good luck, Bastille. These two have some kind of relationship, Ron, but Ignatius just isn't quite sure what the hell it is. There's touches of care, there's touches of sarcasm. Think of it what you will, okay? From there, I'm gonna go a little further with this, and then Alex, we'll talk about you and Dayhon. You good to just listen in for a little bit more?
Yeah.
Okay, right on. Free TV, right on, good stuff. All right, so, by the way, Alex, did you bake us anything tonight? What the hell?
No, there's one of the kids is staying over tonight.
Oh, is everything okay? Are you able to game?
Yeah, I can.
All right, cool. And is this the one that's 4 or 7? Which one's the one staying?
The 7-year-old.
Okay. Well, if they end up sneaking in the room, just give me some kind of signal, and we'll make sure that Bastille's character doesn't cuss so much. You know, we'll try to, yeah. Because Ron's character would never do such a thing, but Bastille, he's a different shade, isn't he? Yeah. Just let us know. What's that? Okay.
Oh, my munchkin's over here doing homework, and she said, "Oh, well, I'm fine."
Oh, I know. Yeah, his daughters love this stuff. I'll talk to him about it every once in a while. Moving on. What would you guys like to do at that point, Danny? You're still standing in front of the main gate, and you can move over to the left of that doorway. Whatever you would like to do. Go ahead. Are you going on up to the door? Are you having a conversation with Ron? You guys take charge, and I'll tell you what's in front of you.
Looks around and he says, "You didn't happen to see Rainlore on your way up, did you?"
I did not. We still are a little bit early yet. He may not have arrived.
Yeah, you're an hour and a half early still. But you do have a key, and you've already been noticed that you're a bit early, and he has already said this thing to Ignatius about the room and things. So just devise from that whatever you'd like.
I would offer, would you like to come see my new quarters?
Now I know why he sent the guards. Sure.
Right.
Figured that out, did you?
I would go in the gates like Landris told me, and request a guard to show me to my room.
Okay. So to do that, Danny, you would be walking up to that other side door to the left of the giant's side of this mural architecture door, and you would see a keyhole place for the actual token itself. And it almost goes in like a coin would go into a vending machine in such a way. And as it does, and it goes in so far, You know what? Do an investigation check. I'm just curious.
Station 19.
Okay. This is pretty cool. You've not seen anything like this in the lower levels of the city. Vander, you remember someone giving him instruction as to how one of these worked at one point. When you put this in, it goes in about halfway, and as you rotate it, it clicks into place. As you spin it with your thumb in place, and as it does, you're able to turn it, and a circular device turns the whole door. It's almost like the little thing on a cooler that you've turned to make the handle flip back and forth in little igloo coolers. It does that thing. As it turns, you hear things unlocking, and a small trail of dust comes off of the far side. And this door starts to crank open as you hear a chain and a counterweight going click, 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 bam. And it stops. And it opens up. There is a tunnel that goes through the underbelly of this wall that has three iron gates in between you and the other side. They are not just your regular cross-hatched gates, but these things almost look like they have like Celtic-looking runes made of iron that lay interworking two-dimensionally. It's very neat iron gates that they have here. And as you open up that main door, you see a wavering torchlight from the other side, as if someone's walking up to meet the other side of this tunnel. Ignatius, as you're staring in, it is neat. Now, avian architecture is much smoother and much more poetically beautiful. But when you see these gates and this mural made on this door, there is something very hardy about this art style they use, but it's catching on to you. You're realizing what these people were capable of in their expressions, and you're seeing more and more of it the deeper we get into this. And it is fascinating to you. It is a major sense of your curiosity. Okay. On the far end, you see two guards that look very similar to the ones that Dayhon and Oma saw earlier, in the same kind of garb with the V'd nose of the silver hawk helmets and the black and gold armor with the long shoulder capes thrown over into pole arms that have the banners hanging off of them. But these guys are the real deal. These guys have actual black feathers on the sides of their helmet that stick up. They almost look like they might be onyx. They almost have a shimmer to them. As the two of you stare through that corridor, you see something very strange, Danny. Something familiar. And it shocks you to a degree. The two of them on the far end of this wall, on the far end of this tunnel on the other side of the wall, have their torch lights, and they look in and make eye contact with you. The two look at each other, give each other a nod. They take a step back, and you see their torches kind of go down, where it's just a golden glow on the ground. And then you see something appear up out of the ground, almost like someone coming up an escalator out of the darkness. You see an image appear in a shadow in the very first section of this tunnel off from you. Looks humanoid. It appears up, looks for a minute, gives you a flash of its eyes. It goes back down. I'll give you guys a second to react to this. What are you doing?
Bast would look it down and try to look around the edges of the torchlight with his dark vision, which he has devil sight now, so he can see in complete magical darkness to 120 feet.
Roll a perception check.
Perception 26.
You see a Nocturne poke up and look at you. Ron, you see some kind of, roll a perception check for me. Danny's grinning, I am too, because he's starting to get it. And you are muted, by the way, Ron, just so you know. Okay.
23.
Okay. You see, and I'm going to try to describe this to you. You see a Nocturne. You've never seen one of these before, but you automatically recognize it when you see it with a roll that high. I would like for you, well, first, let's do that later. What's your reaction to seeing this thing almost like it's sticking its head up out of the water of a pool, but it's a shadow on the floor? These two guards obviously know it's there because they have dimmed the light away from it so it can do what it does. And you see it peek up and look, and it has these large, pointed, wide ears, almost like a bat's ears, sticking up on top of its head. It looks to you quickly. It looks over to Dan. It ducks back down, sinking back into the shadows around the
Kyllian.
first iron gate. Is that what you say?
Yeah, he says it real quick. Is that Kyllian?
The second phase, he pops back up again, looks up and tilts its head a little bit, and you see a little bit of a reflection in its eyes.
This time I'll focus on him for detail to see if I recognize him. 22.
You absolutely do. It's Kyllian.
Kyllian!
He looks at the guy. He says, just one moment. In the wrong one again. He sinks back down, opens up. This time he's standing on your side of the last iron gate. And he looks around. He just kind of looks around it, and he's searching it, and he's running his fingers along it like that. He walks up to you with his arm outreached, Danny. Ron, you are seeing a Nocturne for the first time in the flesh. And all I can describe to you, all I can say to you, is that it is an adrenaline rush. I want you to roll a history check to see what kind of introduction I'm going to give you to these creatures. Do it with advantage.
Was that me you were having rolled? You broke up for a minute.
Oh, sorry. I want you to roll a history check with advantage.
$29.
That's awesome. These are the Nocturne. These are the mortal enemies of the Dareblins, which are you are the avians to angels, as the Dareblins are to demons. You know what Dareblins are very, very well. Okay? These creatures are said to have been created by the Dareblin to work for them as not only slaves, but for sport and for very other cruel acts. And they've created these, and these seem to be some kind of bat hybrid humanoids, okay, with small, thin black fur that covers their bodies. They're actually quite elegant looking creatures. They have large ears that stick out of the top of their head. Have you guys seen a picture of one of these before? Have you, Ron? Okay.
Yeah.
How about you, Alex? Have you ever seen a picture of one of these before?
No.
Okay. I'll show you one real quick. And the concept art for this, there was a video game that came out on the Super Nintendo years ago when it first came out. And I'm trying to remember, I think it was called The Last Remnant. Okay. And there was a creature in that video game called Torgal. And it was so cool looking. And this creature had four arms, and this isn't the case here. But the build and the head and the look of this creature is what I was going for. So for a moment, I'm going to share screen. I'm going to pull up a picture of this so you guys can see what he actually looks like, okay? And then we'll move on. So let me do share screen. Okay, give me just one brief moment here. Okay, here we go. Almost there. Here we go. Okay, let's do. Where are you at, buddy? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. There it is. Okay. That's what you're looking at. Right there.
Huh.
Pretty neat, right?
Mhm.
And that is what Kyllian looks like. Has a bat almost features to him, very humanoid in the face, these large ears perked out on top. These are called the Nocturne. Nocturne. Okay? So I thought you guys would enjoy that. Okay. So that's the creature that you see pop up in front of you. These creatures, in your readings and things of them, Ron, you felt such sorrow for these creatures. As you are a kind soul, as your character is, these creatures fought back from nothing to make their own place and live in what we call the nether world. And by the way, Danny, I don't know if I ever explained that to you. The shadow realm is the realm that Rainlore can traverse, the realm that you almost got your ass kicked in. That is the undead version, the shadow realm. Down below where the Dar Evelyn and stuff live, where there are all these tunnels, that is the netherworld. That's what we're officially calling that. Okay? But they had to fight back, and there are great battles that go on between the Nocturnes, which are almost scattered like a rebellion type race. Like there's just little pockets of them that try to survive and live in the netherworld amongst the Dar Evelins, which are like the alphas of the area. That they will fight and try to hunt them down and re-enslave them and put them back into service. But the Nocturne rarely ever come to the surface talking to mortals. They don't have much legend or lore, but Danny has been fortunate enough to meet one in the last year, and this is him. As he stands up completely up out of the shadow at this point, and he investigates the door, he says to you, in the accent he whispers when he talks, and he almost sounds like Nightcrawler from the X-Men movies. You can almost imagine his movement being very similar to that. And that's why I said, Alex, fantastic shirt tonight.
Yeah.
And I knew who this was going to be weeks ago. And I just think that's really ironic. That's really cool. At that, he has a roll of the tongue, almost Transylvanian. And he speaks whispered. And he isn't very keen on what we think is funny and what isn't. But he's a very polite person. Danny knows him pretty well. Trying to, anyway. And he says, have you decided not to bring anyone with you, Bastille? You are muted. I cast Dispel Magic on your silence. Please speak to us, Danny.
There's actually Rainlore should be here soon, and Ignatius will be attending as well.
He looks over and he looks at you strangely, and he tries to say your name, but doesn't quite do it justice. He can't speak your name and make it sound right. Ignatius.
He says Iggy, Kyllian, Iggy.
You are such a bright person. You must be a holy man. He looks at you with sympathetic eyes, and you can see the mouth, the split between his nose and his top lip. And it's so amazing for you to see such a creature have such a humbleness to him. What are you saying, Ron?
I would kind of give him a little bit of a bow and say it's a pleasure to meet you. I would ask if he's going to be our guide this evening.
He strangely tries to mock your bow and keep eyes with you as you go down, not understanding the custom all that well. And you can see that his eyes are squinted a bit just by being around you with such light-colored clothing and things like that. And he says, a guide, yes. I will show you many things. He says like that. He goes, and he says in his accent, are we still waiting for the Rain Lord to show up before we go the rest of the way in? He turns around, he goes, it is them. And as he says that, you hear several different locks undo, and the iron gates slide the same direction that the first door did into these slots on the far wall. And the guards stand up once again into that archway on the other end, ready to greet you guys. If you're ready to walk through the tunnel now, Ron. What are you saying?
Looks over, he says, we might ought to wait on Rainlord. I don't know if we're going to get a second escort into this place now.
He looks at you and he looks out in the distance. And he goes, where is it that you'd plan to go before we go into the lower chambers of this great city? He looks over. He says, do you have business inside?
He just kind of points his hand over to Ignatius, and then he would go over and lean against the gate.
I would tell him that the king had offered me a residence within, and I was while we had time before we met with Rainlord, I was just going to kind of see what it was like, and kind of prepare myself if I needed to do anything with it or not.
Okay, so he looks at you. Just a minute, I'm looking for a name. So I do this correctly, because there are so many names, and I am not as amazing at memorizing names as certain people are. Just a moment. I think I'll find it here in just a second. Okay. He looks and he says, hey, kiddo, what's going on? I see your daughter, Danny. So he says to you in that accent, he says, you're looking for the Tower of Miralai. That is where it has been said you'll be staying. Inside of the castle's hawk nest. He smiles kind of, but it looks alien almost as he gives a smile, and you see pointed teeth, and you'd almost kind of wince a little bit, because to him it's a smile, to you it's like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? When you study him a little bit more, I want to explain a little bit more of his makeup. He is thin-bodied and maybe 5'6". The ears stand up to be almost 6 foot tall. But you'll notice that the garb that he wears almost looks like a mystic swordsman's type garb. It is dark, it is tight to his body, and there are sashes wrapped around his neck and flow down his front and his back. He has baggy, like kind of pants on that are held tight against from the knee down, that are wrapped, and he is barefooted. Okay? He has 2 toes that have large claws in the front of them, and 1 heel claw on each foot. And you see and you notice that there is a flap of skin that runs down his elbow and comes out and is prominent from his elbow to about 3/4 the way down, almost to his pelvis. That comes down here almost like a flying squirrel. Okay, and the things that he wears kind of hangs on a certain way, and there's nothing that wraps all the way around his center at that point. Everything that they wear armor-wise or garment-wise up top here is divided because of this part of them, and you're actually getting to see that now. It's quite an interesting take on wardrobe that they've had to fashion because of what and who he is. He has said that this place is the Tower of Miralai. Okay, you recognize the name Miralai automatically, Ron. Miralai is the avian maiden that passed away here. She is the one that used to be a song maiden of the avian city. She is the one that was sent as an ambassador to talk to the Darublan people. You know that she is the mother of these twins that you have met. You've met Oriana up in Danny's room, the thing that looks like a half celestial and half tiefling. And you know her sad tale of how she died. And you are actually staying in her old place that she stayed in here, where she gave birth to these two years ago. That is pretty interesting to you. And it is actually called the Tower of Miralai, named after her. Okay? Is there anything you have to say about that once you learn the name of this place and where you're actually, and who actually preceded you there?
I don't think I would have anything to say, but I think I would definitely be feeling a little bit solemn right now.
Okay. As you do that, he kind of perks down, looks at you a little bit curiously, as he can see a change in your mood. And he says to you, he says, my friend, stay bright. And it's a strange play on words, because he's always talking about the hue and color coming off of you, but you know that that's his way of saying to you, don't be sad. Don't be concerned. Stay bright. Okay? With that, he says to you guys, he can stay there and wait for Rainlore. Okay? If you want the guards to go ahead and take you into the city. Okay? He's willing to do that. As he says to you, Danny, he says, I can stay here. And I'm going to dull down the accent a little bit. You guys get the point. I don't need to do this crap all night. I'll do the whispery for you when I'm doing him. He says, I will stay here and wait to Rainlore. And when he arrives, be here at midnight, the chosen time. Okay? With that, he is suggesting that you guys can go with the guards and go ahead and go to wherever you want to in the city. He'll wait behind and wait for Rainlore. And he says, if that is what you wish of me.
Bast is still leaning against the gate. He says, well, Iggy, it's your room. It's up to you, man.
And there are so many things you can do here. That's one path. But other paths, keep in mind, although you have access to this, you have to almost imagine it's going to be limited how far you're going to get to go in here without a guard right up your ass telling you no, or without Kyllian right beside you. And also, Danny, I'll make a point to you. You still have no idea why Kyllian is the guide up in this place. That seems very, very strange to you. You can explain to Ron how you met him at some point here. There's so many things here you can investigate and do. Just make sure to think out loud. Don't just assume things, okay?
Yeah, actually, Bast would, as he's leaning against the gate, would say, so, Kyllian, how is it you made it from the heart of the beast to, well, here?
He smiles and kind of, he looks down. He looks up just through his eyes instead of moving his head up and meets with you. And he goes, there are more ways to enter this city than the main gates during the middle of day. Many ways that have been forgotten. Many ways that I've been entrusted to protect. My people have been here for quite some time. Your King Omadon has given us refuge. And the first time you hear him say something with some scorn in his voice, when he says Dar Eblin, there's always a little twerk to his nose. And that's when the sinister nocturnal nature of this creature comes out in just a flash. When he says to stay away from the Dar Eblin that wait deeper within. And it's weird how dark he gets. It's almost like, look at it. Like when the clown gets mad from it, it's like, hello, everybody. And he gets kind of mean for just a minute and then fades back into charming. When he talks about Dariblan, it gets dark for a second. Doesn't even like saying the word. So piece that together however you will, Danny. Talk to him.
Ass would pull out a piece of fruit and start to chew on it, kind of like I am, and say, huh. So how long have your people been under the city? Like he's making casual conversation.
Right. He looks around for a minute and he holds his fingers to his face as if he's trying to fathom up how much time it has been. He says, the sealed gates of Malakin have shone brightly since I was but a child. You don't know what he's talking about, but when he says Malakin, that means something to you. You know what Malakin is, Danny. Okay? You know kind of the legend to a degree from your looking into books and things like that. It is what they roughly considered the last giant that could use magic. He is talking about a fucking physical place that he has seen called the Sealed Gates of Malakin. And that raises eyebrows. That's all he has to say about that.
You've been there?
It is a sealed way that I help maintain. We help protect who helps protect us from the Dariblan. He's making sense to a degree, but there's a lot he's leaving out, and you sense that. You don't know if it's intentionally or it's just a translation issue. And Ron, you're more welcome to chime in at any time. Go ahead, Danny.
I didn't think it was real.
Ghosts are real. He says, why would this be any different? It's demons. He goes, bat people. He says with discern, I am real.
Yeah, but the last magic using giant.
And he looks at Ignatius like he doesn't want you to talk about it very much out here. He looks at Ignatius real quick and he looks around. And he goes, a place we should hope to avoid. Where we are going is dangerous enough. Ron, were you saying something?
One has to
You're
why
muted.
guard it? Why not?
Hold on. It's so funny because I get it. Because I really do appreciate you guys muting because of all the background stuff. It's just funny. You guys have the same icon I do so you can see if it's muted on your side or not?
Yeah, I have the icon, but it like fades away when I don't move my mouse, so I forget. And then as soon as I start talking, it pops up. You're muted. It's like
yeah, like Ron's got some serious shit. I'm looking at Danny's character on screen. I look down, I just see lips moving. I'm like, oh shit, missed it.
yeah.
Go, Ron, what were you going to say?
That is, I forget now. It's been a while. I was going to say that. You know, where exactly are we going? I mean, we're going under the...
He looks to you too, and he goes straight to it then. He says, he holds his hands up almost like a child. And he holds 2 feet out, like the 2 fingers out. And he does these very kind of, it's it's almost like you're looking at a childlike expression, but he's doing it almost like a shaman or something, the way he is describing how the floors move and how, and it's amazing the dexterity to this person when he does this. It almost reminds you of like the tea ceremony that different Oriental people perform, how everything is a very precise movement with his hands. And he depicts our venture with the fingers being the person in his hands, creating different floors and talking about different things opening up and making gestures. It's brilliant to watch it. And he says, we'll be going down deep below where Omadon sleeps.
All right, I put clothes up there for you. Go see if that's what you want to wear.
Nice. That is what I want to wear. So, and as he's explaining, tell her to get a 2X large or else I'll never get it on. Start at knee fit. Okay. So,
Black leggings and a blue hoodie.
fantastic. Okay. Mute, Kenny.
You'll look,
Mutiny.
you'll look good on the construction site.
Oh, I guarantee it. Guarantee it. So let me get back into this now. He says that you are going to be going down deep beneath where King Omadon rests his head at night. And there will be parts of the city that you will find have been there long before the city existed. What you can gather from what he tells you next makes you think for the first time you've ever heard it said out loud that there was some speck of Gemdar here before the city was built on top of it. See, everyone else commonly would imagine that when everyone came to New Gemdar, which they moved south because old Gemdar was destroyed by giants, okay, and they resettled on this mountain, and it was helped created and built by all the mortals and things trying to make a new capital city. This is the first time a voice out loud has told you, Danny, that there was something here before that they built the city on top of. Okay? Which I'm just going to say would be justification for you. You've heard these bits and pieces. You know these vaults were down below Vander's, and you couldn't imagine all this time, you know, where Oma went to, where she did her ordeal with the mask, where all these different things have happened, how all that was made already, or made by the people that made this city. And you're now getting here out loud. There was something here before. There could be more to this. He says we'll be traveling deep into those pathways. There is a crypt made for the king upon his last days. Shall the Dark Mother guide him? And he nods. He talks of this Dark Mother. You don't know what that means. Okay? Never heard that before. All right? He says, and then there is a curse upon this crypt, this tomb of kings. And that is where I'll be taking you. We'll be passing many other places, many gated passageways. And of course, we'll be traveling past the sealed gate of Malikin. We dare not venture into it. He looks at you very seriously for a minute, almost like when Yoda looks at Luke and he's telling him, you will be. Like he gets serious for a minute, right? When he's telling you this next part, and he pretty much tells you that beyond that sealed gate of Malikin, the mystical magic of the Nocturne cannot protect you anymore. So from that, take what you will.
You know when shirt is that I hung on before I got in the shower?
I think that might be in the laundry wash.
Looks over to Iggy and he says, hey man,
Well,
I'll double check. Just hold on. Here,
what do you say we tour your room when we get back? I'd like to find out more about this before we venture.
I agree. The more we know going in, the better off we'll be.
Okay, so now you've got a solid hour.
Let's see. He says, can you see in the dark, Ignatius?
Yes, yes, I can.
He needs to have a light source, a small one, but he can see in the dark pretty well. His eyes catch light like crazy. He has very large eyes that are capable of doing it.
If I am not mistaken, I do have dark vision. Yes.
Yep.
He says, and, how often do you run into Dariblan down there?
You're asking him?
He's not asking me.
I know. I was like, what? He says to you, he looks to you solemnly. He says, I never run into them. Stay away from them. And because of us and our efforts, they stay away from here. We would fight them to the death. You protect us. We protect you.
He looks over at Ignatius and then back to him, and he says, and how far away can a Dariblan sense its, let's say, its other half? He smiles, or
And he looks at you and
it's off.
he says, other half? Like he doesn't quite understand what you're asking.
Just a sec.
Okay. Alex, you damn near look like the character from The Grudge. You got this dark, shadowy thing going on. No, that's crazy. I know you're into scary movies and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
I thought so. Yeah. God, I've thought about one time putting a grudge-like demon-like thing in one of the inns that we stay in some night, and just playing through that. God, that'd be fun. Just make you guys scream all. That's the Halloween episode, truly, right there.
Oh,
That'd be good stuff. I don't even know. I need to look through the book and see if I can find something that could pull that off. It would be interesting. Hell yeah. All right, Danny. So he seems a little confused by your question.
How far away can they sense a creature of light?
But as soon as the light would touch them, I would have to imagine.
He says,
You don't know what you're asking. He says to you, he goes, imagine feeling as if you were under 1,000 miles of water in an instant. He snaps his fingers like that. He goes, imagine the sound of horns clanging on deep chasms deep beneath the earth, echoing into your mind until it drives you mad.
He looks at him and says, imagine true darkness and broad daylight and moving much slower than you should. I've seen one.
He looks at you. He rolls an insight check of 18. Are you bullshitting him?
No, the Isle of,
You
I
saw
was
that
outside
one.
of,
You saw a very domesticated version of one, but you've only seen the one, and you saw what that thing was up to. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
but that's not what Bast is worried about, but he's also not going to outside of game. He's not going to completely just, hey, we've got an avian walking with us. I kind of wondering, he's trying to pry out of him how far away, without being obvious about it. He's trying to pry out how far away it would be an issue if they had an avian in their midst.
From what you can tell, go ahead and roll me a charisma check, Danny, or a persuasion.
All right, so persuasion would be an 11 plus persuasion 7, 18.
Okay, just for fun, I want to do this. Turn the brightness up on that real quick. We just had a hit on our video of a female that is wanting to know what time that we play. I want to, if she ever watches this video, I'm gonna put her picture up here real quick, and she'll be like, "Oh yeah, it's me. That's cool." This one, and you rolled an 18, Danny. With that, oh, I don't know if you'll be able to see this or not. Gianna Nicole Tempest, and you can't see it because that's Gianna. Yeah, right. So I'll get with her after the game here tonight and see if we can't talk about things. Nose ring, neck tattoos, pink and yellow hair. Cool with me. Sounds good. Okay. So Gianna, I'll contact you after the game tonight. You rolled an 18, Danny, you said? Okay. Danny's giving me the thumbs up because he has a silent spell cast upon him. So with that, through questioning Kyllian a little bit more, he is very elusive when it comes to talking about exact distances. He talks about things as if he's talking about mythos and legends, not hardcore details. You do not get an idea of how far away these Dar Ibn would be, even if they would be within a day's travel of us when we go underneath the city. But you gather that there's an entranceway that you could possibly traverse to get to the Dar Ibn netherworld that is guarded by a large passageway of arcane magics that are made to keep people from coming through it. Okay? Talking about how light it is, how beautiful it is. And it is maintained by different people, and he is a guardian of that. He is but of a few, Nocturne, that help navigate the underneath of the city. He says there are passageways, to places throughout this that you wouldn't believe. There are places where you can go underground and come back up again. And the one place he references the most are the wastelands of Benral, where those Yetis went into those deep caverns that you guys were in. He says there are even passageways through those deep caverns into the netherworld where the Dar Ibans make their home. Okay, so, but he pretty much emphasizes that when we're going underneath the city here, we're only going to be worried about what's happening with the king. The Dar Iban will have no presence here. That has been kept and maintained that way for a very long time. Does
He
that
looks over to
help
you.
out a little bit?
Yeah, he looks over to you and he says, "You comfortable with that, Ignatius?"
I kind of give him a half grin and said, "I'm ready for anything."
Okay. With that, you hear his head perks up, and he looks at you, Danny, and he says in that accent, "Rainlord." As you see a very weary, long dark-haired ranger using a large lance as a staff, walking up the steps and breathing quite heavily, walking on two legs, coming up the main set of steps, and he stops at the end. He's like, he's breathing heavy. He's like, "Oh, it's a hell of a gate." I like how it's Bast, I made it. He's like out of breath. It's really been hard for him to make it up these steps. Go ahead.
When you seen me counting like this, so Bass would have been doing the same thing from the moment he said that he heard him and perked his ears up. Bass started counting to see how long it took before he heard him.
It would have been 6 seconds. I'm going to tell you, I know you're an elf, Danny, but his ears are a little bigger than yours.
I know, and that's what being being where he used to be so big into being a rogue, that would have been something he would have done. Is he's timing out what their senses are compared to his.
Okay. So as you do this, Ignatius, you hear the heavy panting of Rainlore standing on the top precipice of these steps, sarcastically talking about how beautiful the wall is, as if he gives a shit. He's too tired to care. And he looks around, he's looking, and he sees that one door. I gotta guess. Right. Fuck, man. He just keeps on trudging up. More steps. Woo! He's just like that. He just starts making his way over that way. Are you guys stepping out to greet him? What is the deal? He's making his way up to the open door to the left of the giant side of the door.
Bass would walk out and be like, stealthy as always, I see.
Because stealth didn't save your ass in the shadow realm before, so sometimes quiet's not the way. And he stops right in the middle of his words, and he looks over, he goes, Kyllian? Right on. Kind of goes like that, and he says, oh, that's going to be useful. But and then you can see him piecing it together. He's like, what the hell is Kyllian doing here? You can just see us wash over his head. And he just kind of shakes it off, and he goes, screw it, man. Right? Walks on up the steps and gets over to you and looks over at you, and he looks at your wings, Ignatius, which I'm going to say you haven't put away yet. And he gives you a sarcastic look, and he's like, show off. Right? Do you guys say anything to him after that?
I would say that at my age, I've earned not walking up the stairs.
That's true. That's a good point. So,
Bass is leaning against the gate and he chuckles and he says, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king.
I didn't realize you were becoming a poet. He kind of smiles and goes, that's cool as hell. You keep that up. He goes, so.
Yeah, sleeping with Vanders, some of that education has to rub off on you.
This is right on. He looks through that passageway and he's looking through there and he's like, so what have we. And he looks over and he says, so you're taking us where we need to go, Kyllian? Kyllian looks up at him and says, non-yes, very humbly. And says, and now that you're here, the party is complete. Time to take it? No one else coming or involved tonight? Rainlord says, I think I'm it. I'm the cavalry. Little horse joke. And what do you guys say to that?
I would kind of look over to see what Bass would be doing because this is his quest, kind of like your call, man.
He's literally your wingman here, buddy.
That's
You're
it.
and the puns just keep coming. The puns keep coming. Go ahead, Danny.
You know, Val Kilmer's up above us talking about you never leave your wingman.
That's true. Yeah, there's a character. People watching are like, what is he talking about? There's a character that is one of the main, a higher up in the place called Overwatch, which is an addition built high up to the city where the airships dock and stuff like that. And they have a person up there called, what's his name? Trevedale?
Trevedale.
Yeah, Trevedale. And he looks like a swashbuckling, he uses like a medieval, like steampunk type guns and shit. And he is a Russian version of Val Kilmer in his prime. And he is the main guy up there. He wears a really big swashbuckling hat. You met him, Alex, the character he's talking about. Did you meet him, Ron? I don't think you ever did you?
I don't think I did.
He's interesting, and that's your wingman. You never leave your wingman. So that's his reference. There's a character that looks like Val Kilmer up above us.
All right. So, Bass.
Go ahead, Danny.
Well, it looks like we're complete.
Okay.
And as Rainlord catches his breath, I guess we could start down the steps.
As you look to him, he looks around. Oh, that's funny. That's real funny. Poet to comedian. just like that. That's good, he says. And then kind of gives you a serious grimace and burps a little bit, but it sounds like there's a little vomit in it. He's like, because it was a long climb. He says, you got to work on that wine a little bit, Iggy. It's not good for climbing steps. Because you remember the last one, he was down in some of his shit. So he still got the aftermath of that on him. And you can smell a little bit of that wine on him still, Ron. But it is what it is. These lowlanders and they're drinking, man. It's crazy. Okay. So with that, Kyllian turns and walks through the long passageway that goes through this thick wall into the courtyard of the highest level of the city of New Gemdar, into the Hawk's Nest. Okay. With that, Alex, do you and Danny want to do a moment or so getting onto the airship?
Sure.
Okay. We'll go through that for.
Right.
Go ahead, Ron. What were you saying, buddy?
I'm gonna have to call it a night, but now seems like a good time you're moving in with Alex and Danny's characters, so
Okay. So we will do
I'll
that.
watch the video and catch up.
Right on, man. Or just message me. We'll talk sometime about it. Like I say, we'll be playing again this Sunday. We'll start getting things ready at 6, hopefully be taken off by 6:30 because Ron is taking his kids back to college on that day. So we'll go ahead and say goodnight to you, Ron. And now we are there getting ready to go into the underbelly. We've met our guide. Rainlore has got up there. Went through some pretty interesting stuff. It takes time when we role play this thick and heavy, but when we get in there, we're ready to rock and roll. So we'll take off on that, and I will talk to you Sunday.
Sunday it is. All right.
Have a good night, Ron.
Have a good night.
Yep. All right. So, Alex, thank you for being patient. When we do things like this, it's just kind of part of it. We have to do this in like movie flashes, okay? So I heard Danny's phone going off. It sounds like a submarine diving. He's got a call, so I'll bring you up to date on it, and we'll catch him up in just a minute, all right?
All right.
So, remind me the last thing you remember, the last thing you dealt with. I know that you had talked to the guards quite a bit, described to them the situation that happened with these shadow imps. And I don't think you ran into any other issues. And I was going to start explaining you getting onto the actual airship, correct?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. And if not, it's okay. We're just going to go with it from there because you've done plenty of stuff trying to get from A to B. So we'll just go ahead and get to B. Okay. Daniel, I'm sure will join back on in a minute. Sometimes he gets work calls. He is a pilot instructor. So it's important stuff. So if he's saving lives, no one's crashing because he has to bail out for a minute, that's fine. And he'll join back on in a minute. So it is getting quite late, and I'm going to say it's probably about midnight for you as well. By the time you finally go up through Overwatch, you're walking past the crow's nest. You're seeing a couple drunk people that normally work on airships and stuff that have just had way too much. And this is, I think we said that this is almost like a Saturday night in the city. That was when the big tournament went down below with the behemoths and stuff. And there's this amazing energy in you, Oma, and you are just feeling it's been such an adventure over the last 24 hours, all the different things that you've went through and done. And this seems to be, this is something you've really needed. You've really needed to get back here and just kind of find your center and things like that. Hello, Danny. Oma's fighting the Taras, and I need you to roll initiative.
You know what? I believe Dayhon just learned how to be stealthy, and you decided you're on your own. Little
You're on your own. Yeah, it's crazy shit happening. Black out. So we're going ahead and saying that you guys are on the ramps leading up to the airship. I think we pretty much got there, didn't we, Danny?
Yeah. Now, did you mean that pun? Because crazy shit does happen when Dayhon blacks out. It's just usually he's drunk and picked up and cuffed.
Right on, right. Yeah, and you got Clint Eastwood sitting there prodding you and shit. So, moving on. You guys get up to the ship, and there is the sound of laughter and cheering and things from inside of the ship. And Dayhon and Oma, you both know that this being practically a Saturday night, it's been one hell of a day. You know that the dwarven character, Danny, his name again, because I'm horrible with it, the redheaded bombardier, Dauntus. You know that Dauntus has plenty of coin. They're down there playing a late night game of some kind with certain crew members that are allowed in. You have to imagine that Aeolus is down there conducting the whole thing, and you can hear his loud, elegant voice over top of the rest of them, kind of coming out muffled from the lower parts of the ship as the ship just sways gently in the air, just levitating, roped up to this long pier-like dock that's between it and another ship beside him. As you guys get to the ramp, I was telling Oma that you see a couple people that are asleep, leaning against barrels on sacks of rice and sacks of different goods and things on the outside of the ship that are lightly snoring, empty bottles about. There's been a pretty good time on the ship since you've been gone. As you guys go up, is there any conversation you two want to have before you head on to the actual deck of the ship?
As you're walking up and Dayhon sees him sleeping, he said, you know, I've thought of tying a rope to someone's ankle and tossing them over just to see if they piss themselves when they wake up. But I pass out as much as they do, and I think it's a bad idea.
Like the airship version of cow tipping.
Yeah.
Right. God. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Alex, what'd you say?
I'm wondering if Wedge's new leaf on life is stuck.
You know what? Roll a perception check, Alex.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know.
And that's wisdom, which you're very good at.
Mm-hmm. That'd be a 15.
Okay. With a 15, typically you would see Biggs and Wedge drunk on the ship somewhere. Normally, sometimes you've even seen them fall asleep in each other's arms, really, really fucking drunk and stuff like that. He's not here. He's not on this ship. Now, that Biggs is the one you look like, correct?
Wedge was the one I looked at.
Wedge, okay. So you see Biggs by himself. Passed out. He's the one passed out over top of the main mast of the boat like this by himself. That's rare. Those two are pretty much inseparable most times. And you have to think somehow what you did to him a couple episodes ago took hold, and he is not up drinking and being his normal destructive self. Okay. You also see a bunch of those coins of Trevedales, the ambassador of airships up here, if you will, laying about the feet of Biggs, as if he's won things, but he's fallen asleep and just a hot mess of his own alcoholism and these leftover fake coins that have Trevedale's head on them and stuff like that. With that, from downstairs comes Dauntus. Now, I don't think we've done an episode where Dauntus was in it, so Danny, would you like to describe to everybody what Dauntus looks like and who he is?
Dauntus actually looks like trying to think, Tormund Giantsbane.
From the Game of Thrones TV series.
A red-headed guy, but he's very steampunk. Even though he's a stocky dwarf, He has just different contraptions all over him on his vest and stuff. In the city where most dwarves are from, they do have cannons, and they're very good with their cannons. But he's taken it to another level, and he's very almost you would think that he's about half tinker in him the way he plays with things. But he also has a bad gambling habit, which actually got him in trouble with Dayhon recently.
Right on. Yeah, Dayhon usually acts like his bodyguard most places he goes to make sure no one steals the shit that he wins. And his name is, why do I keep on wanting to forget Dauntus? I get Demberon and Dauntus mixed up all the time. So Dauntus walks out drunk, walks up the steps from the lower part, the door opens and light comes out on the deck of the ship for a minute, and you see the shadow of somebody much bigger coming up the steps, and then all of a sudden it shrinks down and you see it's Dauntus, and he has a musket in his right hand and he has a bottle in his left hand, and he's walking out and he's kind of staggering, and he looks around and he drops the gun and he bends down to pick it up, and when he does, some of the stuff spills out of his bottle because he filled it with him, and he's like, oh fuck, what about he goes to pick up the gun, he just kicks it. He goes, I don't care. And he walks away from you guys, not even noticing you, and goes over to the edge of the ship. And you look at him, he's getting ready to take a piss. He goes up to the edge of the ship, and you're looking at him, and the moonlight is shining down from above. And he goes undo his pants, and he says, He kicks his head back like this, and his back is to you guys, as he's on the far side. And where he's got all these things, and these tinkered little things, he has a very like carpenter's like vest with a big collar on it, and as he's doing this, his pants drop because he doesn't keep a hold of them, and you're looking at his bare ass for just half a second, and he goes, I don't care, I don't care. Oh yeah.
When he gets his bare ass out,
Yeah.
Dayhon is going to take all I've got's gold and silver. He's going to take a silver and wing it with everything he's got to hit him in the ass cheek.
All right, hold on. I want to ask you something now. Now, Alex, you have the spell guidance, don't you?
Okay.
Just for the hell of it, I wondered if you had any kind of spell that you can cast that would help him with his check or something of that nature. Mind you, everyone watching, Alex is she's still learning the cleric role, so we give her little pointers and stuff every once in a while just to see. But she's getting there. Oma is a cleric character and a summoner, and is a lot to handle for someone that's not used to it. So, and you don't have to. I just want to know if there's anything you wanted to help him with.
If not, natural 17 plus 2 to hit him in his unguarded bare ass.
Okay, so 19 definitely works, but I wanted to see. Nothing off the top.
I have
Alex?
intensified spell.
Nope, that'll work. He's all good. So you see Dayhon grabbing this coin, and I want you to roll a charisma check, Alex, to see if you start laughing and let Dauntus know you guys are close. Because it'd be hard for you to control it.
Okay.
Ooh. Hi, Mom. Sorry, I'm afraid of moths.
That was a...
And for a charisma check, you're just rolling a 1d20, and you're adding your charisma bonus. And I don't know, I think wisdom is what you are for a cleric, so I don't think you have your proficiency bonus on this.
Okay. So a 15.
That works. You're able to hold it back. You want to laugh because you know what he's doing. He's going to put a flat silver coin on this guy's ass cheek like a major league pitcher. With that roll, Danny, it smacks him around the butt cheek flat. And as he does, you hear him go, what the fuck? And he jumps up like this, and he starts to stagger a little bit, and he trips and lands on his knee, and he pees straight up in the air like a fountain for half a second. And with a natural 2, pisses on himself. And he's rolling around trying to get his pants pulled up, And he reaches over for that gun because he doesn't know what's going on, and it's spinning just past his fingertips. And it's spinning like a bottle on the deck, like spin the bottle, the kissing game. He's trying to grab it. He looks over with one eye. He goes, "Well, you've got to be fucking kidding me." Oh, and you two, not a word out of either one of you. And we've imagined that his voice, the way he talks about things, is almost like pissed off Joe Pesci, only comedic. So that's the kind of voice this guy, that's the way he comes across. So he gets up one morning.
I know. You were cleaning it and it went off in your hand.
It wouldn't be the first time it's went off in this town. You don't know how many fucking kids have probably got running around in this place. It goes off all the time. Thank you very much. Oh, but turn around, please. Just turn around. What are you doing?
Looking everywhere but at him.
She's just,
Lovely.
just doing her thing. Fun. Oh, shit. Ron's gonna watch this and be like, "It was so serious when I was there, and then when I left, all the fun started." So, yeah, I mean, there's a difference between going into a royal crypt and coming back onto a drunken airship. There's differences, people. So, as that goes on, he finally gets his britches up and stuff, and he looks at you and he comes up to you, he walks up and he kind of looks high up at you, and he smacks you 3 times on the middle of the chest there, and he puts his hand on you, he goes, "Dayhon, my friend, we're rich. Like the kind of rich that makes a person want to say, I'm done with this, like my own ship rich. You know what I mean? Me and you, buddy, remember?" And he's pointing, he's talking to you and stuff. What are you saying, Danny?
I take it you bet a large sum that I would take out a behemoth.
It's a large sum, sir. It's a large, and he's being extremely perverted. And as he's done saying this, he says, "Come on, I've got it. He's got out the good bottles." And he gives you a click like this, and he smiles. He goes, Come on.
You're not playing cards with him.
What's that?
You're not playing cards with AO.
Yes, I am. He's just like that. And he turns around and he goes back down there and goes, "And you are too." And when he takes the gun off and he points it back around behind him like this, he's pointing at you guys with that gun. Roll a dexterity saving throw. Both of you.
19.
D20
18.
plus 18. Okay. You guys instinctively want to duck like, "Oh, gee, I'm out of the way." But the gun does not go off. Maybe he's pissed on it and the flint is wet. Who knows? But he's pointing around behind his head like, "You and yours, come on." And you naturally want to duck kind of out of the way. And he opens up the door and he goes, "They're back." And then he walks in and you hear people, "Hey," and all this shit and the other. He goes in and leaves the door open. Oma, what are you doing?
I stand back for a little bit and just kind of barely poke my head in the door.
Okay. Dayhon, are you doing the same, or are you just going straight in and going past her?
He just walks right on in.
Okay. So as you're peeking and being timid, looking around the side, Alex, all of a sudden you just hear large, heavy steps of Dayhon as he walks up and you look into the room. Into the room, there are about 4 or 5 different shipmates, including Dauntus. And you also see Aeolus, and Aeolus is mixing up some drinks in some very fine-looking steins. And you catch him in the middle of his speech, and I've explained to people before, Aeolus is the ship captain of the Lai Lung, which is the name of the ship, depicted of the dragon, that image that adorns the front of it. He looks like the actor that plays Lucifer, and he talks like him. He's a very debonair, very tall, handsome man. And he looks over and he goes, "You know you'll owe me several coins before you purchase your own ship, you little munchkin." He says like that, cleverly, as he's pouring a drink. And he goes, "And you've not earned everything back yet that you've lost to me, but we'll see if we can change that before." And here enters the hero. Oh, look at him. And he puts his hand out and he's talking about you, Dayhon. And he goes, "Hide your coins and your shackles, everybody. It's the jailbird himself." And he gives you kind of a mean look. And he says, by all means, please sit, join us. It's probably been a whole long time since you've had a meal that wasn't made for prisoners. The typical bread, peeing in a bucket in front of other people. It must have been dreadful. He says, "Do tell us all about it."
Sits down and he says, "Actually, they hired me to make a little extra coin the next time they roll some behemoths in." It's quite a cordial talk. You'd have been proud.
So you see one of the other ship hands going, "Wait a minute. Are you going to tell me that you went into the slammer with bar door and you come out a richer person for it? Is that what you're telling me now?" Fah. He looks like that and doesn't believe it. And he throws coin across the table. What are you saying?
I'll lay the 10 gold down that Aeolus sent. That was my bail. There's what it cost to bail me out.
As soon as you lay down the gold, Dauntus goes, "Ha!" Slams his musket down off the table, and it goes off. It shoots up into the ceiling of the ship, and as it does, two other people duck down underneath the table as he blows a hole through the top roof of it and stuff like that, and he fumbles it like this when it goes off because he was just slamming it down, excited about the coin you had. With that, Aeolus, Alex, roll me a dexterity. Just roll me a 1d20 and a 1d4 and tell me what you get.
12 and a 4.
16. As Aeolus is coming around with those drinks that are very full, he does not spill a drop.
Oh,
Coin collected as always, even with him slamming the gun off the table, shooting a hole in it. People were ducking and shit. He's just walking across there. He goes, "Magnificent. I've always thought there needs to be a little bit more moonlight in here at night. Thank you very much." He smiles at him sarcastically and shakes his head. And he goes, "You best keep the rest of that coin for yourself, first mate." He goes, "You may be buying some repairs before morning's end." He takes the 10 coin and slides it across to him. He looks at him. He says, "I'll add that to what you've earned me as well tonight." And he smiles really big. And he looks at your mantle.
Says, "And I couldn't have done it without this." And he returns his pistol.
Ah, there she is. He holds his hands out like that, and he come over and he collects it from you. And he smells it, and he says to it sarcastically, "Was he bad to you, girl?" And he's like looking at stuff like that. And he goes, "What's that? What's that?" "Oh, I'm proud of him too. I'm proud of him too." And he's being extremely sarcastic, and he puts it back into the side belt he has hanging very low off of his hip. He comes over, and he has made one of those drinks for you and one of those drinks for him. When he puts the drink down beside you, you know he is a master of deception, and his moods change very quickly, Danny. And as he lays that drink down beside you, he looks you in the eyes closely for just a minute. And he goes, "Anyone that believes that mantle's not for a purpose now be damned." And he looks at you. And he says, "Spirits smile down on you, old friend. But tonight is the night to celebrate." And he gives you a very insightful, very true moment for just a thing. What is your reaction to that?
He looks up at him, grabs that glass, and he says, And I made sure they knew that it was from the Lai Lung when I put that final blow on him.
He looks, yes, an endorsement that would have been hard to buy anywhere else. He goes, to the Lai Lung. He smiles and holds up that drink really high. Okay? Oma, several different people are grabbing drinks and things. You kind of feel out of place. What are you doing when they go to cheers? Are you grabbing something off the table and attempting to drink something? Or what is your reaction to this? You're the only person without a beverage in this room. See, if you were a character, you just make good berries.
I'd raise my empty hand.
Nice. As she raises her empty hand, the rest of you raise up and have a swig. He says, to the Lai Lung. He says, a ship made of many parts, all of them sturdy and strong. Takes a drink back. Okay. It takes strong pillars to hold back the sails of this vessel. And goes, of my friend, of my pillars, Dayhon, you are the mightiest. He says, so I've heard there's been quite a bit of commotion going about in through town. The lower city, of course, nothing up here nothing that would bother us, but I've heard they're having quite a lot of trouble keeping things under control down in the actual new Gemdar, as they call it. He goes, so tell me, other than beating a behemoth and then getting thrown in jail, how's the night been for you? And he says, deal me in. And as Dauntus is dealing out cards and getting ready and doing a piss poor job of it, as drunk as he is expecting you to explain the story of the night and what all's going on. Danny, I'll let you start. Alex, you can interject. And anytime you think Dayhon's screwing the story up, you can interrupt him, because you're like just play it out. What are you telling him, Danny?
So as we're leaving the city, I'm sure you've already heard how I wound up in jail, or do I need to start there?
I knew that you were in jail. I didn't concern myself particularly with the details. Oma, actually, to her credit, didn't throw you completely under the ship on that one.
He says, imagine that. And he looks over.
He looks at the two of you. He sees the grin on Oma's face. He looks at the two of you and goes, this is going to be good.
This is, for all of us on the ship, you'll remember the Rougarou.
He nods.
Well, that arena down there was polluted with them. She needed to get by, so I picked a fight with a couple of them. I managed to throw 3 of them over the balcony before the guard showed up.
One of them was on fire. It's impressive.
Right on. And when you say you threw some over the balcony, Danny, dumbass, your dwarven buddy goes to slam down his gun and goes, ah! And then that one goes, oh, come on, stop that now. And he grabs him and stops him from grabbing the gun. He goes, you're gonna shoot everything up. We'll have rain on our heads before morning. He goes, I hate the fucking Rougarou. I hate those bastards. He's saying to you, and he's speaking in this really gruff, very foreign accent. He says, see, so go on with your story. Then what happened next?
So they take me down there and they pick out, believe it or not the biggest chains, but only the second biggest chains they've got.
Aola says they must have thought maybe you were a smaller man than you seem to be in stature.
You should have seen the chains.
He smiles.
But I got my introduction to Bardor.
Fucking
Tongues
Bardor. And that other anonymous guy sitting there at the thing's like, fucking Bardor. Oh, I hate him. I call him the ball smasher.
You should call him Honored Elder.
As he sees the serious tone in your face, there's a hush that comes over everyone at a minute. And Aeolus kind of reads the room for a minute as you're staring down this kind of guy, and he just kind of looks at you. Roll an intimidation check, Danny.
14 plus intimidation. Oh, that's charisma. 21 total.
Another natural 2 tonight. This guy pretty much looks down at the table, and he mumbles something underneath his breath, like, wasn't honorable when I, whatever. And kind of looks down at the table as you put him in his place. And Aeolus looks at you and says, so you found honor in a prison cell. This is a good story.
Yeah, it turns out he's not such a bad sort. A little pissed off about being kept home from his wife, having to drink from my flask.
Nice. The cards are dealt out. Danny, go ahead and pick up your hand and roll me a 1d20.
An 8.
Your hand does not look very damn good at all. Okay? Now I want you to roll a performance check, and then you tell me what you want to look like, how you want to play this.
I got an 18, and I'm not proficient in performance, but I am proficient in charisma. So I don't know how that rolls out.
So you put your proficiency bonus plus your charisma bonus on its own towards that. And what does that give you?
Proficiency plus charisma plus 7 total. So 18 and 7 would be 25.
Wow. How do you want to play this? You want to make it look like you have a really, really good hand? Do you want to make it look like you have a shitty hand? How do you want to do it?
He looks at it one time and just kind of smiles and then lays all the cards down. And he says, as he slides a gold coin out, he says, for it. And then he realizes it's not his turn to bet, and he pulls it back. And he says, so anyway, I found out where those burn marks came from. And we had a discussion about taking on beasts.
Aeolus looks across at you and runs his finger across his top lip. You're pretty sure you've got him fooled. He looks at you and he says, you just can't stop winning tonight, can you? He looks at you, and he had like 4 or 5 silver pieces in his hand. He looks at him for a minute, puts a few of them back and only throws 2 in, and looks at you suspiciously. Alex, you are standing back behind Danny's character, and you can see from what you've learned of this card game that Danny has jack shit in his hand. Okay? But he is fooling these people masterfully, making them think that he actually does have something more. But in that moment, you're reminded that you are staring right at his cards. And as you look up, you have this look on your face like, maybe they're watching me. What do you do? Dauntus, the little red-haired steampunk, like bombardier dwarf with the vest, is looking back at you, but he's looking at you. He's like, yeah. He's saying like that. I want you to roll a performance check, Alex.
Uh, 23.
How do you want to play this? You guys are fucking poker face thieves now. How do you want to play this? You want to fool Dauntus and make him think that he's exposed something in you, or do you want to make it appear that Danny has a great hand, a shitty hand, or you just want to act like, oh no, not me? I mean, what do you want to do here?
I want to mimic the look that
That best
that
Dayhon had?
that
Okay.
he has a really good hand.
Okay. As you do that, Dauntus is looking across at you, and all of a sudden he's like, He says like that. He says, I just, and he takes it and he throws down 3 silver. He just ups Aeolus's bet by 1. The game continues. I should mention really quick before we go on, it's 9:30 now. Are you guys good playing until 10, then we'll call it a night, or do you need to get off here now?
10's about the latest I can go.
Okay, how about you, Alex? What do you need to do? It's okay.
Probably go.
You sure? Okay, we'll go a little bit more, and then we'll try to conclude this little conversation here, and we'll move forward from there. Okay? That way everyone gets some rest.
He goes on about how he had his conversation with him, and after that, he returned the gold that she bailed him out with. And then that they ran into what he calls shadow imps. And he describes that fight. And then he, really makes Oma's part big. And she summoned a phoenix, the giant phoenix that sat on her shoulder.
And that's the best that he would be able to describe what you actually did, Alex, which you'd probably get a kick out of.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to say to that? And he looks over to you and he says, it's Aeolus, of course. And he goes, impressive. I'm glad to see you're finally starting to spread your wings a bit. Because I'm sure there are many people that would have loved to have seen that. But alas, you were too busy bailing certain people out of jail for us to enjoy the festivities. But that's okay. I'm sure there will be other days. Am I not right, First Mate?
Many to come. And he takes a drink and he looks to see if it's his turn to bet yet.
Many to come. He drinks again. He says, "Oh, do put something in that precious hand of yours, would you, Oma?" And he looks back behind the bar, which there's been many times that you've helped yourself to things back there before. I want to describe the layout of the room real quick so you know what this is. This is not a large room. This is maybe like a 10 by 15 little corner game room that he has built in the lower part of this airship. But it is very quaint and very cool. It is all hardwood with the rafters of the upper decks above us with lanterns lit up and swinging. The room is very well lit. There is almost like a parchment paper like finish to the walls. There is an awesome corner bar that has a shelf that hangs down from the ceiling that has a whole bunch of glass figurines and all kinds of different bottles and mystic paperwork and a skull with a dagger through the eyes and all kinds of neat little trinkets, almost like a TGA Fridays for airship captains. And then there are big pillars and beams that come down, and then there is the lower part of the bar. And it has candles lit on it. It is a vast collection of things back behind that. And on top of the bar are different maps of different areas from the far north west, which is where the Lilong ship is originally from. And the bar top is decorated with all these different maps and locations and contracts that they have done, and it has been clear coated over top of. So it's a really interesting looking bar. There are portal windows out of the side because it is up against the side of the actual underbelly of the ship, and you can see out and look at the clouds out over the night sky. And you can see the light snowfall every once in a while flicker and hit against the portal glass, and it slowly melts away as soon as it hits from the warmth radiating in here from all the bodies. I would say one of these people that are at the table, I would say has something that looks like a little mandolin and softly plays a song, not very well, but it's just charming enough in the background as he sits and plays in between different things. This person hasn't said too much in between our card hands, and this would be a gnome person, younger, that is a shipmate sitting back here playing a little bit of this mandolin rain kind of stuff. Okay, that is the actual room we're in. Would you like to get up and get yourself a drink, or are you going to pass, Oma?
I'll get myself half a drink.
Okay. It's been a long day, and you've done some really brave things. Normally, maybe you wouldn't, but today, and you're thinking about all the different times you've seen Omar drink from like different Baxtra horns. Back in the day, the tribe and stuff has the horns of an actual Baxtra, which is the beast he takes in his spiritual form. And You're looking for something like that, and you remember a particular bottle back behind here that looks like it is made out of a dragon horn that is corked. And you've always wondered what's in that. Okay? Would you want to try for that one, or something just like everybody else has?
Something just like everyone else has.
Okay. As you go back there and you look at that dragon horn one for just a minute and you run your finger across it, but you think better of it. You grab a simply corked bottle that seems to have some kind of average ale in it to a degree, and grab it and bring it around the side. What the guys are drinking tonight doesn't smell as naturally brutal and sour and musty like second day beer to you. It smells more spiced. It smells more festive, as if Aeolus is stocked up on some good stuff because of everything that Dauntus won. So you're hoping this is more pleasant than you anticipate. You're used to drinking mead and things that were made by your people. This may be close to that. As you uncork it, go ahead and roll me a Constitution saving throw.
Okay.
That's just 1d20 plus your Constitution modifier.
Well,
12? Okay. It is actually very, very good. I rolled a great thing for it. I rolled an extra 19. So it is pleasant. You can tell that it is ale, but the way it is spiced and the way it has been crafted, you would have this again. This is not bad. And Aeolus looks across at you and looks at that girl. There she goes. I think you're starting to rub off on her a little bit, Dayhon. He kind of smiles. And he goes, you're both summoning phoenixes all the time and all. He looks at you cleverly.
He smiles and then he flips that gold out into the pile, raising it from 4 silver to a single gold.
As you do that, Demberon throws down his cards and says, he says, half that's mine when you win it all. I haven't finished. And he gets up from the table to go take a second piss. Okay. As he walks away, roll me another performance check, Danny. This time with advantage because you have him on the rails.
Oh, wow. Natural 19 with advantage. So plus his 7 charisma.
Fuck. You have bested Aeolus again. He looks at you. Why not? Just to see what you're made of. I mean, it's only money. And he pushes in 1 gold. And he looks at you. Oma, have you averted your eyes from Danny's hand, or are you coming back behind him to look? Or are you going and sitting down somewhere else?
I'm sitting down towards the window to watch the snow fall.
Okay. As you do, and you're putting your hand up along the side and you're looking at the snow fall up against it, you're kind of peering off into the distance. The gnome on the far end speaks up. He says, Oma? Yeah, hi. Hey, we haven't really spoke before, but I noticed I've heard you humming a song a couple times up on the deck and whatnot, and I kind of wrote something for it.
Oh.
I don't know what it's named, don't know what you call it, but I'm gonna try to play some of it. If that's okay.
Certainly.
Dayhon looks at him and goes, are you in or out?
Oh, I'm out. I can't anymore. I can't. and he folds his cards down, and he begins to start on that mandolin, and he taps his foot. He's sitting up on a barrel, perched up, like Kermit the Frog playing a banjo on a stump, okay? And he's clicking the heel of his boot against the bottom of the barrel to the beat of what he's playing. And it's almost a tribal type beat because that's what you're used to. And he is playing what you can identify as a spirit walking song. There has been times in your room at night where you have been, you like practicing some of the songs that you sing that you use when you spirit walk. Like we've talked about in your class and kit, when you are communicating with these spirits and you pull them to you to help you, to guide you, you have to perform a ritual. You have to perform a dance. You have to sing or at least vocalize something to appease them, to make them, draw them back towards you. It is almost like, and we've discussed this before, it's almost like in Final Fantasy X when the character Yuna would communicate with these creatures that she would summon, she did a certain ritual thing, and that is something very sacred to your people. These dances have stayed this way for a long, long time. That way, any spirits passed along at any age in history will recognize them. And you are an excellent practitioner of these things. And you have hummed these songs in silence. People have heard them through the walls. There have been times where you've been up on the deck and you've been singing them to yourself, practicing. This gnome has taken an interest and listened to you enough to where he plays this, which is a natural 17. Let's say 1d4 are his bonuses. And a 2 with a 19 is respectable. And it portrays a little bit of that. What would you like to do when he begins to perform this? Aeolus looks across and has a pleasant smile on his face and closes his eyes and is going along with it for a minute and looks at you and gives you a wink and smiles. What are you doing, Alex?
Um, I'm a bit taken aback. I hadn't thought anyone was paying that close of attention to what I was doing.
I want to add, let's say if this gnome kind of looks like Ron from the Harry Potter movies.
Okay.
The redhead.
Mhm.
Kind of has that kind of thing about him. Okay, please continue.
So, I find it
And it's okay
charming,
to
but
be all struck by it. It's fine. You don't have to say anything if you don't want to.
I find it charming, but a bit odd hearing it from someone else.
I'm sure. Danny, is there anything that you're doing when you're hearing this? Although her tribal is very different than your type, you do recognize that he's doing a fairly good job. Roll me let's just do a wisdom check for history.
14 total.
You recognize this might be something that she sang before, but you can't pin it down. You believe he's doing an okay job, and you've never heard him do this before. He's always just kind of piddling around at different points on the ship when they're doing chores that are a little bit too much for him. He's usually helping Aeolus do some different things. He also crafts several different beers and cooks on the ship as well. But this is the best you've ever heard him play. What are you doing?
He nods along and then he looks. Are we playing a 5-card draw game or are we just playing a stud? What are we playing?
I haven't really detailed what the card game is, but for Alex, just to because I know her family enjoys doing this, it's like a euchre type game. I know euchre is really important to her, and all the people like to sit around and play it, so I thought that'd be for her.
I have no idea what that is.
That's okay. It's an Indiana thing. It's a lot like spades. So with that, it's you and Aeolus, and I will say the gruff one, the one that you kind of look down on. He's kind of bitter at you, and he doesn't want to lose to you now because you kind of stared him down. He goes, I think I've got a little bit more left in my pocket to see what you've got going on over there. He says, this is one fight tonight, Dayhon, you're not going to win. Time to share some of that wealth you've collected. And he throws down a gold and 5 silver.
He smiles, Dayhon does, and he says, well, Aeolus seems pretty confident in his, so it's not just me you're beating. And he raises it to another gold, so 2 gold total.
Aeolus raises his hands up and says, I just didn't realize I paid you that well. He smiles. He goes, I need to check my pockets after this game, I would have to say. But it's intriguing nonetheless. Wouldn't you agree, Dayhon?
He smiles. Absolutely it is.
Absolutely. He looks at you with one long last look. Roll one last check, Danny. Advantage.
Okay, with advantage. That one's hard to read. That's the 12, so 19 total for performance.
Lucky motherfucker. I rolled a 1.
Oh, yeah.
You suck. He looks at you and he pulls on that point of a chin hair he has like this, and he looks at you for a long time. No, Badan. And he says, Badan, which is the name of this other character sitting across from you, the human that has the thuggish voice. I believe this will be the second conquest that Dayhon has triumphed on tonight. I regretfully fold to you. He throws down his cards. He looks over at Badan and sees what he's going to do. Oma, roll a perception check, please. I just thought of something.
Oh, natural 1.
Natural 1.
Yep.
Oh man, that would have been so cool. Nope, doesn't work. Okay. Just for the hell of it, I gotta say, because it was just a neat idea, I was going to say that you actually saw in that portal the reflection of Aeolus's cards.
Ooh.
I just thought of that. I thought that'd be neat. And I was gonna be like, he had a really, really good hand, but you see he's folding just to be nice.
Oh.
I thought it'd be neat. But that didn't happen because you suck at rolling dice. But anyway, you're liking the pretty snow. That's all it is. With a 1, you're drooling looking at the snow. It's all good. With that, the other one, he's actually physically sweating now, Badan. He's looking at Aeolus. Well played, Dayhon. Takes the cards, throws them down the table. He says, and don't add insult to injury. I have no interest in what you actually had.
He laughs and he pulls the 2 gold back out that he put in.
Yeah.
And he says, the rest of that should pay for our drinks tonight, Ayo, since I was late to the party.
He smiles. And with that, we'll end tonight's session. Okay. So we'll pick up next time, see where you guys want to go and where you want to head. And we are pretty much right there to going into the crypts with Kyllian, of all people, as our guide, which is going to be really, really neat, I think. Kyllian's a great character. I'm going to contact this person. I forget her name already. Too many names. And I'll give her a message and see what she thinks. I'll get this recorded and post it. And that'll be good. So we'll have another female playing the game, which will be outstanding. I've got to get Scott and them back in this too, man. It's going to be good. And mind you, everyone, these cutscenes, as long as everyone is patient and enjoys watching other people play, we can do this. And it's sometimes it's tough to get everybody together and keep a good storyline at the same time. So we'll just see where this takes us. We'll go through the night. We'll get up into the next morning. But I think on Sunday, it's going to be mostly role playing of Danny, Ron, and my character Rainlore. And Alex, when you join in, I can have you rolling stuff for whatever we run into. Just be part of the show, have some fun with it. And if they want to take a break or something, we can do a cutscene as to how your night goes. Anything like that. Okay? And then at some point, once that's done, if they survive, if they don't survive, what they find, whatever happens, I literally don't know. I mean, I do, but I don't know which direction they're going to take, how it's going to come to be. Hopefully at some point we'll get everybody in a group, whereas when we play, it's all in the same direction. It's just getting there. But that's part of the fun of it. But this cutscene thing, are you guys still okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. As always, as I end these episodes, I will say goodbye to Alex, and then me and Danny will viciously plot things in the aftermath of this, as we always do. It's our kind of sit around bullshit session afterwards. So if you're watching this video, thank you for hanging in there. Hope you enjoyed it. And we will play again this coming Sunday, episode 7. So thanks again for watching. Alex, have a good night.
Good night.
And we will talk to you on Sunday. If anything changes, just send me a message, okay?
Alrighty.
All right. Night.
Good night.
All right. Bye, everyone.